Why did it happen? Because of Facebook, right? So there we go. Why this stuff really matters to me? 3 reasons. The first and most powerful reason for me is a very personal one. In the upper right-hand corner are my children. Jacob, the Mickey Mouse shirt, is 5. Theo with the glasses is 3. Jacob's actually about to turn 6 tomorrow. And Jacob's in kindergarten. And already I can see learning is becoming a thing. It's what I do here, right? And that joy of something new, something fun, something wonderful is being replaced by, did I finish my homework? In kindergarten, he literally comes home with about a half an hour of homework every night. And I always wanted to lose that. Theo has glasses, you can see he's got some health issues, which means there's every probability he's going to have an IEP, which means that forevermore in his schooling, he will be seen as a disaggregated subgroup by the way we currently define school. And I don't ever want a teacher to look at my child and think, oh man, I got to get this kid to pass the test. Not what I want. Not what I want for my children, not what I want for all children. The other reason I really care about this stuff is that photo below. That photo below we just replaced actually literally about 2 weeks ago, because this is the first class of the Science Leadership Academy, and and this was from their freshman year, and we just retook the picture about 2 weeks ago with them all in their senior years. And if you ever want to be humble, have the experience of 120 families before you even have a building to show them. Say, yes, we will trust you with our children. It is the most awesome responsibility, given that I would make a lousy brain surgeon. It is the most awesome responsibility I can imagine myself in my life. And the thing is this, which is that it was very palpable and real to me because we were starting to school with these kids, but all over our country. People say, we trust you with our children. In cities, in public schools, in private schools, in charter, that is the compact that we honor that. And the last photo is of the teachers at the conference that we run in January. And all over this country, teachers are just confused right now. It's really a horrible, horrible time. And it shouldn't be. It should be a wonderful, joyous time. And teachers know something's wrong. Teachers feel something is wrong. Teachers feel that what they're doing doesn't quite work anymore, and they don't have answers. And so this stuff really matters to me because again, I love school. I mean, schools are sacred places. They are cathedrals to me. And we have to do a better job of fixing them and making them better. So what I like to talk about is this question: what should our schools be about, and why aren't they that way? And then, of course, again, this is, by the way, you'll see that sign in a little bit. So first I'm going to talk about my biases. This, by the way, this is actually tricky. It's going to be right in crazy. Let's just go ahead and say that right up front. I have 3 biases that I would cop to. The first one is I think we make this a lot harder than we need to. John Dewey, progressivism is kind of getting slammed in the papers these days, but I'm a big fan. I think School 2.0 is a very simple idea, which is progressive education with modern tools. My mom was a teacher. I make the most sense of anybody. I am the son of a teacher and a union lawyer. I am the most derivative human being ever. Whenever my parents, a couple of times my parents had the opportunity to see me speak, and people go, oh my God, these are revolutionary ideas. And they're like, no, they're not. Come on, we talk about stuff. It's great. Thanks. So in 1975, my mom was teaching in Camden, New Jersey, right across the river. Tough place to teach. And in 1975, she was doing documentary filmmaking with middle school kids. Now, you saw the film that was shown a little earlier of the kids and how beautiful it was and how elegant and da-da-da. And I guarantee you they probably spent a couple of weeks on that maybe tops. In 1975, to do that was unbelievably labor intensive, was unbelievably difficult. The kids had to cut it was literally like, the reels and the cutting and the whole thing. And it took forever. And what came out was, by and large, sadly, crap. Through no fault of the kids. The tools weren't there yet. You've seen those old school movies. It's like, like chicken on there, 5 seconds of jump cut, and You know, and it's like, and so it was so easy back then to argue against this idea. Because it took too long. What weren't you teaching while they were making the film? And what was the product anyway? And who really cares? And no one's going to watch a bad film, and da-da-da-da. And today, that's just not true. Today, kids can make content. Today, kids can create artifacts of learning that can serve and stand as powerfully as anything that, you know, production companies make. We had, there was a TEDx event in New York City recently that I was lucky enough to be a speaker at. And we brought, they wanted to you know, TED, one of the mandates if you're going to do a TED event is you have to broadcast it, you have to record the tape, because that way TED can pick up the good ones and take credit for it instead. And our kids, we brought our kids. They were like, oh my God, we can't form a film crew, we can't do that. We were like, we got a film crew. No sweat. Brought 8 kids up, rented some equipment, boom. We rented nice equipment we had in school, but you know, and put out an incredibly professional broadcast, beautifully done. I mean, you know, like it looked, I mean, you would have never known. You would have never known those as kids do. Never. Magnificent. That's the power of the tools we have today. I have another bias. It drives me insane. It drives me around the bend every time I hear people say the job of schools is to create the 21st century workforce. No, it's not. The job of school is nothing less important than to co-create, along with our students, the 21st century citizen. If we shoot for citizen, we will get the workforce we need. I have no doubt of it. But what we won't get are the scholars and parents and neighbors and civically engaged citizens we need. Workforce is too low a bar. And going for a workforce puts us in a position to train our kids, not educate them. And I want to educate kids. I have one last bias. I believe that public education is the hallmark of the American democratic experiment. And I respect that you're going out to Episcopal. Magnificent. It's beautiful. I can see you jealous of that campus. You'll see why soon. But public education, to me, without public education, there is no public life. Without public education, there is no democracy. It should be not only the great level, not only the thing that allows us all to reach a certain level of intelligence, of skill building, and all the rest of it. It is the place where we see people who are not like ourselves. It is the place where the democratic experiment should be in a microcosm all over this country. In schools like everywhere. And I really believe that. So we know what they're saying about schools, right? And I mean, what's going on across the river right now? How many people are New Jersey based in the room? I'm sorry. And not for the normal reasons. I lived in New Jersey I grew up in Mount Laurel from when I was about 4 to when I was about 13, so I stand with you as a proud New Jersey brother. But, not what's going on in New Jersey is just horrible, and it is, again, it's going on all over this country. They're saying that schools are obsolete. They're saying schools are broken. They're saying schools are wastelands. They're saying all of these horrible things, right? There's all this incredible coded language going on right now where, you know, no one will say we don't like teachers because we know that that's politically not a smart thing to say. So what's going on right now is people are saying, oh, well, we like teachers, the good ones. You know, or, you know, there's nothing wrong with schools. They just, whatever this kind of horrible rhetoric right now around failing schools and all that. But yes, we have incredible problems, and there is no question that if we do not change, if schools do not change, sooner or later we're going to prove people right. We're going to prove to people who say the worst things about us, who want to believe the worst things about schools, right, and that scares me a lot. So I think we need to stop. I think we're at a point now where we cannot continue down the path we are on. And I think that's true for just about everybody in the education community right now. That's true for the politicians. That's true for the business people. That's true for the unions. That is true for the administrators. Everyone. We need to stop. We need to step back. We need to really think about what we want to do right now. And I think as a society, we need to stop blaming teachers. We need to stop blaming schools. We need to stop thinking that we can only measure kids by a test score. I think we need to stop thinking we can measure schools by the aggregate of their test scores. It's fascinating. I don't think we saw this yesterday. But the charter schools, which for the longest time were sort of proponents of the test scores, there's been all this research that's come out in the last couple months that said, shockingly, the test scores of charter schools are roughly comparable to the test scores of the public schools. And now, all of a sudden, all the charter advocates are going, maybe we need a better measure of schools than test scores. To which those of us in the public sphere are saying, well, we're over here, we've been waiting. Let's talk about reinventing schools. Let's talk about measuring something other than just what a kids do on a single day, sitting there bubbling and some answers, right? And the problem is this, and it gets to this thing around all of the issues we have with good, quality, wonderful people are going into schools and going into teaching careers and leaving, or staying in it and feeling compromised. And no one feels good in most schools. It's really sad. And this question really does keep me up at night. Like this question, as I think about not only my role at SLA, but my role of trying to provide a voice in the larger community, of how can we have so many dedicated educators with so many problems? You know, here in Philadelphia, there have been 14 schools identified as Renaissance schools, which is an Orwellian term of your ethnic proportion. Those schools are going to be reconstituted. Their faculty is going to be fired. Up to 50% of them are going to be hired back. And then they're going to be taken over by charter management organizations, outside management organizations, this whole crazy thing trying to address the problem of schools. And just last night, I was having a conversation with some colleagues about the hiring season this year and how this is affecting it, and how there really is that problem where now you have all of the teachers who've been put back into the sort of teaching pool, the hiring pool, with the stigma of you were let go of a family school. And the sad thing is, and one of my colleagues who runs a school that is in school improvement, who's an amazing educator, the school is a really tough place to be. He said, you know, Chris, these teachers will think, oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Not every teacher in a Renaissance school is a bad teacher. And that gets to this problem. These people know, I have yet to meet the teacher who went into the profession going, you know, I want to hate children. Right? That demon teacher. Are there bad teachers? Yes. Absolutely. But no one went into it with bad intentions. And the problem is this, which is that the system is so broken. If you put a good person into a bad system, the system wins too often. In the School District of Philadelphia, according to the teacher's contract and all the rest of it, a high school English teacher can have up to 165 kids on their roster. How many 10-page research papers are you going to assign? Seriously. Think about that. That every time you assign a 10-page paper, which, you know, as far as I'm concerned, a junior in high school should write a couple times a year. How many times do you sit down and authentically grade and read 1,600 pages of student work? Once a year? Maybe. And while you're doing that, by the way, you're still teaching every day. You're still teaching 5 classes. You have a 30-minute lunch and a 45-minute break. And that's it. Otherwise, you're on. This is exhausting. Like, I'm going to be tired when this is done. Imagine doing that 4 times a day, 5 times a day, every day, and then going home and doing 3 to 4 hours of radio planning every night. It's not sustainable. And then we wonder why teachers burn out. We wonder why the good ones leave. We wonder why good ones also make compromises that are impossible. We wonder why the lowest common denominator of assessments prevails. We wonder why people give projects or tests or quizzes or anything that have one right answer. And some of that is because they don't know another way, and some of that is because, my God, the other way is so darn hard. And we live in a frustrating time, right? I like to call it the Madden paradox of Education 2010. I took this photo. I walk around all the time with my iPhone, just taking pictures of what I see around school. I'm so sad that this device didn't come with a camera. This is one thing I got to carry around. But this is a picture of Sam, and what he's doing right now is he's got his little document camera and he's doing an earthworm dissection. And you can see he's just pulling that right into his laptop. He's going to take that image and he's going to make it part of his lab report. He's going to post that lab report online. Now, that's incredible. right? And it's the funny thing is, it's like, I could show you that. I could show you one of them. You guys would be like, oh my God, you know, you're doing some amazing thing. And for us, it's just every day. This is just, I mean, it wasn't like I was in this class, they were doing something special. I just had my phone. Cool. The amazing thing is, when I went to high school, the biggest joke in the world is that I run science high school. I'm an English teacher. That's a whole other story. But I hated biology, and I'll tell you why. I'm a lousy artist. I am stick figure boy. And in high school, you had to draw all the cell structures. You had to draw all that stuff. And I used to get C pluses and B minuses because my drawing stunk. Could you imagine? Maybe I would have been a scientist. Maybe I would have fallen in love with biology. Maybe I would have found the tools. But here's the other thing, and this is why the magnetic paradox is this. Sam can do all this stuff, he can put it together, he can label it, he can do amazing, amazing things. This doesn't matter unless he gets the answer right on the test, according to the state. All of the artifacts of learning that he is building, all of the things that he is doing demonstrate his mastery, both of the skills, of the tools, of his ability to manipulate them, and his ability to do this kind of work. Doesn't matter unless he remembers one weirdo question from an earthworm dissection on a multiple choice test. That's the paradox. By the way, this is just, okay, full disclosure here. If you, proving that kids multitask, and even when we don't want them to, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of his screen, you know, you've got the image there, you've got the Moodle web page behind it, but then if you look at the upper right-hand side of the screen, someone just eye-checked. So I just noticed that about that picture. In schools today, and in the language of schools, it is, I'm sure this is probably seeped into your world, you hear this phrase all the time, data-driven decision-making, data-driven decision-making. You go to workshop after workshop on data-driven decision-making. Here's the funny thing about that. I'm a big fan. I think we got to analyze what kids do all the time. We got to analyze ourselves. I think we got to analyze what schools do. Good data-driven decision-making assumes you use good data. Good data is not cheap. Good data is expensive. Good data is time-consuming to analyze. Standardized testing is cheap data. It's easy data. That's why we use it. Because it gives us the illusion of a level playing field. It gives us something that we can give to all kids. But that doesn't make it good. Efficient doesn't always mean good. And I believe in my heart, and what I see with my own eyes, that we are making decisions based on lousy data. And when you make decisions using lousy data, you make lousy decisions. I think we have to understand that. We also, this is the other thing going on in schools today, we hear all the time about this age of accountability. We must hold schools accountable. No one, no test, no district level official, no government, no one can hold me more accountable for the children in my charge than I hold myself responsible for. And this is the language that we must take back. No matter what piece of the school puzzle we play, all of us must take back this language and talk about responsibility, or we will be held accountable in ways we don't like. We must take back our language. When do we abdicate that? And the answer is, sadly, a lot of times schools advocated that we started talking about things that didn't matter to kids. We gotta talk it. It's gotta be about the kids. It's gotta be about the kids. It's gotta be about the kids. So I think our single biggest problem right now is that we have a real lack of vision. Right? And I just grabbed this photo off of Flickr a while back, and the caption was, "Look at my new classroom." Well, the stanchions are blue. That's kind of neat. Most of us have the problem, and I'm sure all of you have this moment, where you were presenting to a facility, where you were presenting to a school group, and you had some brilliant idea of some beautiful open something structure, blah, blah, blah. And you got hit with a question that showed that at the end of the day, many of the people in the room had just wanted desks and rooms. We've got to have a better vision now. We've got to tell a better story than that. I think there's another problem right now in education right now. There's an incredible lack of humility. I don't care if it costs you a client. If you walk into someone's meeting and you hear that someone say, "We know everything we need to know about education, we just need to do it," please walk out. We don't know everything. You know, when I hear people talk about that, one thing I Because I don't know. I've got a kid dropping out of school right now as a junior. I have done, tried, begged, everything. We have done everything I can think of. I've gone to his house. I've sat with his mother. We've sent our social workers there. We have tried to work with him to find him internships that would excite him. We've tried to do a million things. We failed. We failed. Period. We lost him. I don't know everything because I couldn't say the name. And it's not for lack of trying. I promise you that. But I don't know. Anyone who tells you differently is lying or is suffering so deeply from their own sense of hubris that what they're doing is wrong. And I really believe that. A related problem to that is that we are insanely ahistorical profession. I remember when I was a young teacher and I came home really excited about something. I was home for the holidays visiting my parents, and I said, "Oh my God, there's some new," and I don't even remember what the term was. And I talked about this whole idea. My mom listened very patiently. She's very patient. She's like, "Yeah, back in my day we called it this." We don't understand that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and we forget a lot, which is a problem. And I had the opportunity to speak to some university people who do research trainings, and they're taking it on the shit pretty hard. And they were really surprised because what I told them was something very different than what they were hearing. Because I think every research teaching program, I think every teacher, before they pick a classroom, needs to take a class in history of public education. In the history of education theory. Because there are threads and there are themes and there are things that we have learned that we forget. And as a result, we reinvent the wheel every time. And I hate people who read off the slide, but I'm going to. I love this quote. What the school system needs to understand is that its strength lies not in the strength of central organization, but in the strength of an individual school, not in making one school like another, but in making each school a distinct unit. The need of the system, the preservation of its units, so that each school can keep itself alive, wide awake, responsive to its people, easily adaptable, the best of its kind. How many people want to design a school for him? You can't. He's dead. You knew that was coming, right? That's Angelo Patry wrote a book called Schoolmaster of the Great City. He wrote that in 1917. He was a principal and then district level administrator in the Bronx for his entire career. And when he was a principal in the neighborhood that, 8 years later, Jonathan Kozol would base Amazing Grace in, he was bringing in doctors and lawyers and social workers and gardeners, and he was bringing the entire community to bear. 80 years later, 90 years later, Jeffrey Canada invents the Harlem Children's Zone, literally less than a mile and a half from where Angelo Patry did this, and people hailed him as if no one had ever thought of that. Now, there's no question Jeffrey Canada is brilliant, and the work that he is doing is extraordinary. But he stands, and he will admit this, he stands on the shoulders of giants. How did we forget this? How did we forget what this man did? Why doesn't everybody understand that? Because the fact of the matter is we have to relearn that lesson when we never should have forgotten it. So what else does that quote mean to me? What that quote also means to me is that you cannot standardize schools. You cannot create a cookie-cutter school. And again, I work in the school district of Philadelphia, where we have a core curriculum, it's a standardized curriculum, and yet part of the big initiative in the school district of Philadelphia is differentiated instruction. Come on now, think about that for a moment. I really don't understand that. It's like we all get into a corner, like all in the same bed and say, all right, everybody on 3, differentiate, go! How do you create a standardized curriculum in differentiated instruction? It does not make sense to me. There's such a contradiction, and it's one of the reasons why I don't think it's heads down. I think there's another thing we have to think about ourselves. This again relates back to the Patry quote. We are fascinated by the new. I do a lot of work with the education technology community nationally, and God, that group loves the new. Is it Ning? Is it Twitter? Is it this? Is it that? Slow down and stop. What's good is a better question than what is new. A teacher and a group of kids sitting in a grassy part of the lawn, talking about literature, is still good. It may not be new. It may not be sexy. it is still good. And that's true in architecture and school design as well. A lot of times you see these buildings and you're like, when you see what somebody did and they're like, and you say to someone like, well, what was the choice here? What happened? Well, we wanted something really new. Okay, but it's new. Right? Change is change, but innovation is positive direction. You have to know the difference between that. And the other thing I think that we have to understand is that we learn best when it matters to us. Right? This is a photo from the conference that we host, EduCon. It was a 3-day conference where literally 500 teachers from all over the country, teachers and school board members, administrators, even a couple of facilities people, show up and learn powerfully for 3 days. And the weekend goes by like this. And it's because we all want to be there. How many of you have had a powerful learning experience in the last year of your life, formally or informally? But a moment where you thought you were learning. How many of you had a moment where, how many of you had that moment interrupted, something, a phone rang, something, and you looked down at your watch, or you're like, you pulled out your cell phone, and you realized that more time had gone by than you could possibly imagine? Do we do anything to set students up to learn that? Is there anything about the structure of our traditional schooling that allows for that? 42 minutes, let's go. Sit down, pull your homework out, do the thing now, bell rings, 3 minutes, next class, let's go. What about what at all? We've got 5 stories, we've got 3 minutes in class for the first story. We do so little to make school relevant. We do so little to allow those powerful learning moments, to allow reflection, to allow those things to happen. And the fact of the matter is this, which is of all people, this quote, John Cleese, right? But it's true. If you want creative workers, give them enough time to play. What this is a photo of is the MIT Media Lab. How many people know the MIT Media Lab? Okay, the MIT Media Lab is geek heaven. It is where, if I die and come back a smarter person than I am today, it's where I will be. The MIT Media Lab is where the smartest people in the world come together to invent stuff to change the world. To change the way we think about media and human interaction and technology and all the rest of it. And the amazing thing is if you go there, I got to spend a couple of days there a few years ago, they'll tell you. They have everything they need and it's always open. 2 o'clock in the morning, inspiration is, they're there, they're in the lab. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, inspiration's not needed. We're outside on the lawn playing frisbee. Here's the other thing that's really amazing about it. Look in the middle right hand of the photo. Anybody can read what the motto of the Media Lab is? It says lifelong kindergarten. These are the smartest people in the world. And that's how they roll. Lifelong kindergarten. These people have every right to be jaded, obnoxious, and snoopy. Because they're really smart. And they retain a sense of awe and wonder and play that is missing in our schools. Why do we deny it? Why? If we want to prepare people to change the world, if we want to prepare people to be there, we can't beat the love of school now. We just can't. And we have to understand that things are different. Right? What can I tell you? This is Theo again. This photo's actually a little old, but Theo and Jacob wake up every morning. Number one, if you want to imagine Daddy in my house right now, before he gets to play with this, Daddy's toy. My kids wake up, this is a new laptop, I got it last year, and I got it on the educator plan, they threw it a free iPod Touch, so my old laptop is set up with every kid thing they can imagine, they've got the iPod Touch, they've got all that stuff. That's what they want. I mean, they still, Jacob and Theo both, they love to go outside and play and shoot baskets and run around and, bother their neighbors, do all that stuff too, but they don't want to watch TV necessarily. They don't want that passive sort of let me receive this information. They want to use tools that matter. I had on the iPod Touch and on my phone, there's a brilliant educator who's a children's author and does stuff with lots of children's music. This guy, Peter Reynolds, And he put some of his books, he took his books and he instead made them into little iPod Touch interactive widgets. And my kids love this one. They'll read this way. A little more interactive than a book. But they want to interact with the world. They want to use technology. They don't want to just sit there and kind of passively receive information. What's going to happen when, and they're amazing, this stuff is just, it's like oxygen. Jacob, when he was 2 years old, had already figured out how to flip through pictures on the iPhone. It was like, you know, I mean, my dad was like, I don't know, how do you, But for these guys, it's like, you know, it's like nothing. And here's a fun little thought experiment. And I dare you, if you were designing a new school, take their principals, take their design team, take whomever it is, and ask them to stand outside of school at dismissal and face the door. And watch what happens. And what I guarantee you will be this. Kids will be walking out, they will be pulling from their backpacks, from their pockets, from their underwear, I don't care where, every device that is currently banned in their schools. And they were told don't bring them in. Now they're texting the kids standing next to them, which I admit I don't understand. Okay. But it's as if we are denying the very oxygen they breathe. And then we wonder why schools are relevant. And then we wonder why it doesn't make sense. And they wonder why they perceive us as out of date. When these kids, when this generation is in school, you know, God help the teacher that tries to make theory a worksheet. You're going to reject that one. And the point of it is this, right? Again, Alvin Toffler said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And to prove my point, that's a picture that I grabbed from the Slide Rule Museum. Will anybody in the room cop to learning math from a slide rule? When was the last time you, now you guys, when was the last time you used one? And I'm also willing to bet that the last teacher who gave up slide rule math was awesome at it, was good at it, was the most, like, excellent slide rule math teacher that had ever existed. But the problem was they didn't recognize that the world has changed, so they were too wrapped up in their own ego. Here's my version of being way too wrapped up in my own ego. When I started teaching in 1996, I was teaching web design. In 1996, I was like, hey kids, there's this thing called the internet. You know, we'll plug in Mr. Stoll's computer to a modem, and then we'll have one, you know, we'll walk through this, whatever. And, you know, and I was teaching kids to write HTML because I was cool, I was hip, I was going to conferences, I was presenting, people were like, oh wow, HTML is making everyone learn HTML. And then time went by, and the read write web popped up. And all of a sudden, all the tools became easier. You know, the first thing was HTML editors. You know, they all said, what? Oh, that's a crutch. They shouldn't learn how to do that. My kids can write really great HTML. Meanwhile, people were pacing on the actual content of the work that the kids were doing, because now I wasn't recognizing that it wasn't about the HTML. It was about the work that they could do. And sure, there were some kids who don't want to learn stuff, just as there were some kids who want to be computer programmers. But I missed the point that if this was a barrier to kids publishing, then I was in the wrong. The reason was because, again, my own ego. I was unwilling to unlearn that because I was cool because I could teach kids HTML. So the really scary thought that all of us, and I think this is true of design as well, we must think about what are we willing to unlearn and relearn? What are the sacred cows that we hold dear to our belief, and how can we challenge them? Because as John Dewey said, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday, we rob them of tomorrow. We don't know what the world is going to bring. We don't know. We have a sense of some of the problems that our kids are going to have to solve. Some of them. And we also should know that there are problems we have no idea about yet. We can't teach kids to solve yesterday's problems. We can't teach kids to be yesterday's citizens. We can't teach kids to be yesterday's workers. We've got to teach them how to think, how to critically analyze, how to wonder, how to question, how to seek answers, and then hope to God that they're smart enough to handle So now that you're all depressed, a little hope. I think we have to recognize that there is no silver bullet. We have to ask ourselves hard questions. What do we need and what do we value? Those answers be given. That's okay. It's really embarrassing. Lean down and press play, press space bar every time. Ah! Okay, who didn't know that was going to happen? All right. Step one, right? Have a vision. We have to have it. It's not enough to say we want kids to be lifelong learners. You know, we've got to get out of edge-speak. We've got to have a clear vision that takes us somewhere. And that vision should determine everything else. And I'll tell you a really simple one. This was, you know, you'll see this is actually, I believe, this is a science lab, is what this is. You'll see this later on today. This is, when you go into room 204, this was room 204, just so you know. Yes. One of the first things that actually last year's keynote speaker, Christian Long, who was a very good friend of mine, the story of the building of, I will tell you very quickly. I was on the job 3 days. I had taught in a school in New York City for 9 years that was a converted prop warehouse where the hallway, it was New York City, so every last centimeter of space mattered. Our hallways were this narrow, and we put 34 kids in a classroom, roughly this size, right? I mean, like, it's classic New York City. So the idea of sort of any sort of expansive design was like, I was on the job 3 days when the woman who was helping us develop the schools that were opening said to me, Chris, you've got a meeting with the architects. It was Friday afternoon. I just emailed you a PDF of the plans. You have a meeting with the architects Monday morning. Come in ready to tell them any changes you want. I will just tell all of you that you are an intimidating group. I was happy. And I had emailed some and read this blogger, this guy Christian Long, who wrote this cool design blog about school design. And he had read my blog and left me a comment or two, and I read his blog and left him a comment or two. But we never really talked. And now I was scared. So I emailed him and I was like, ah! You know, like, help! And we spent that weekend trading so many phone calls, and so many emails, and so many ideas, such that I had the language of school design when I walked in the morning to say to the architects, here's what I want in a language you can use. And you will see this on the tour. But one of the very simple and very easy sort of manifestations of what we chose and what we did was that our main office looks different. There is no, the classic main office, as you all know, the principal's office is in the back. If he's lucky, he has a window and a bathroom, or she has a window and a bathroom. And I'm still jealous of my colleagues who have their own bathrooms. And there is a phalanx of secretaries protecting the principal from anybody who actually might want to talk to them. And we blew that right up. There is no gatekeeper in my office. There's a door right next to the door where to the sort of secretary part is. It's a door in my office. And the kids all know if it's closed, don't go in there. If it's open, it doesn't matter who's sitting at the table, cut through, walk through. The teachers sit in a space that is a collaborative space right behind my office. So now this is space for everyone. There's not this crazy delineation of teachers over here, students over here, support staff over here. And my development coordinator, who will be leading some of your tours and who's organizing that today for you all, he's got the corner office. And I don't. And that's okay, because I have the ability to talk. That vision came from the whole vision. So SLA is based off of 5 core values: inquiry, what are the questions we can ask together; research, how do we find answers to those questions; collaboration, how do we work together to make those answers deeper, better, richer; presentation, how do we show what we know; reflection, how do we step back and figure it all out. That informs everything we do. That is a vision that takes you somewhere. The Gates Foundation, by the way, this was last week. Bill Gates was at our school. Neat. So this is him actually questioning these 2 students here. We showed him all a bunch of our engineering projects and the certain ways we're trying to change the world. He seemed kind of unimpressed. But the Gates Foundation, when they first got into small schools, they had rigor, relevance, and relationships, and that was their 3 things. The funny thing is that it didn't quite lead them where they thought it would, because they never quite figured out what they meant by rigor, which was a problem. And so they really kind of struggled with that. The relevance and relationships part, the lots of the Coalition of Essential Schools, which is an amazing progressive organization, this is their 10 habits of mind. And what they say in a CES school is that everything should relate to this. Everything should be about this. And if it's not about this, you jettison it. High-tech high on San Diego, personalization, global connection, common intellectual mission. These are words that mean something. These are words that take you somewhere, that affect design, that affect curriculum, that affect hiring, that affect everything you do. And Christian, when he went back into the classroom, he put this on his front door of his classroom. Take a second to look at that learning manifesto. Right? Playing small does not serve the world. Your brain is your brain. What would Socrates do? Nobody cares if you walk uphill both ways in the snow. Look it up or die. Nobody knows the answer. Get comfy with the questions. If you're a student, and that's on your 10th grade English teacher's front door, and that's what you walk into every day, you know you're in for something different. That's not the motivational poster that you can buy online, that said, hard work, it's its own reward. That takes you somewhere. That's powerful. And you feel crazy. My 2 cents on my personal manifesto, my personal vision for school, I want kids to be thoughtful, wise, passionate, and kind. When I say thoughtful, I don't mean that as a synonym for kind or nice. I mean, I want them to be full of thought. I want them to have the wisdom to apply those thoughts. I want them to care about things, and I want them to treat people well. If I do that, if kids graduate from SLA with that, I think I've done it. And if they can't remember when the Magna Carta was signed, so be it. They got that. So how do you get there, right? How do you build those schools? The first thing you do is you got to build caring institutions, right? It is the difference between the statement, I teach physics and I teach kids physics. Children should never be the implied object of their own education. And when we design our schools, both physically, curricularly, what have you, the idea that it is children who walk those hallways needs to be the most primary thing we think about. Everything, I challenge you, by the way, when you do the site visit, to look for these things and to look for everything you're about to see at SLA. And ask me, where does it live? Someone says, I want X when they design something. Say to them, great, we can design the space that lives, but where will it live in your policies and procedures? Where will it live in your systems and structures? At SLA, we have an advisory community. Every single teacher is an advisor. 20 kids and a teacher, all 4 years. At least twice a week, the curriculum is the community. You and me, kid, we're going to get through. That's the parent's first point of contact, that's the teacher's first point, that's the kid's first point of contact. It's the idea that every single student at SLA knows there is one teacher, that part of their job is to be their advocate. That's how you build this notion into your school. The next thing I think schools need to do is I do think they need to be inquiry-driven. What are the questions we can ask together, and how can we find answers to them? Again, some of you are sitting here because you paid the money to come, you've got some things going on, and you're curious about this stuff, but you could care less about what I am saying because you didn't ask for it. I was force-fed to you. But I apologize. Hopefully, and when it's more of a workshop and keynote, it's okay, what are the questions you want to ask? How can we seek out those answers? Schools have got to be student-centered. It's not about us. It's not about how smart I am, how clever I can seem, what kind of whiz-bang I can do. I'll tell you where that looks in science, right? In science, the science teacher, and I'm stealing this idea from the art of motorcycle makers, I'll cite my sources because I'm a good academic. Robert Pirsig writes that the mechanic who honks the horn to find out if the electrical system is where the problem is doing a more authentic scientific experiment than the teacher with the whole massive thing doing something where he already or she already knows the outcome. In our science classrooms all over this country, the teacher station is whiz-bang, and what the kids have access to is little. That's not science, it's a magic show. Science is getting your hands dirty. The kids do it. That's student-centered. That being said, those people who are saying that with all the tools and all the everything and all of this and all that, kids don't need teachers anymore, and you can just do it all on the computer, or you can do it all self-directed, you can do it all, they're lying. Kids need adults, desperately. The most important role we play is mentor today. We're not the masters of our own content anymore. Any kid with this in their pocket, and most of them have it, or some version of it, has access to more information than you have in your head. The problem is they don't know how to make sense of it. The problem is they don't know how to parse it. They don't know what to do with it. And that's where we still play our most important role. How can we help kids make sense of the world? How can we enter it? I think schools need to be community-based. We can learn from so many people. And we know why schools aren't in so many times, right? Schools have to, by the way, I'm really proud of this picture. That's Jeff Hahn. I don't know, how many people know about TED Talks? He did one of the really famous TED Talks where yes, at least one person's not in their head. He's the guy who, if you watch CNN's election coverage, and the dude who, like, and how they got the thing, and then you know, the screen, and you can like touch it and circle it and then zoom and multi, and everybody goes, ooh. He's the guy who invented it. And every, once or twice a year, he shows up at school and just hangs out with us. And this year he brought his toys. We thought that was cool. But we know why in most cases the community is not involved in schools, or if they are, it's like, back to school night, a basketball game, a drama production, or something like that. People aren't in schools. It's because schools happen to take place during the time when people work. We created the world's largest daycare system ever. And it makes sense. People got to work, so we send our kids to school. Great. But now with technology, we can bring the community in a million different ways. You can Skype in authors. You can email with university professors. You can do a long-distance mentorship with a business person if you're interested in a business. We can bring the community to bear on our schools, and we can broadcast out what we do. Every now and then there's something really awesome going on in our schools. We'll just open up a Ustream chat, and we'll stream out class. Why not? We have to look at schools that are collaborative. The synthesis works. My idea will be better to interact with your idea and it's changed by it. Group work doesn't mean you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then we stick it all together and we get something. Group work means the sum of our ideas are greater than each of our individual ideas, and that we actually synthesize what we do. I think schools also need, yes, that's sort of just a place of incredible passion. And I'm not talking about what kids try to sneak off and do in the back hall. They do that. Again, something I learned in school design is one of the things when you look at your plans, you have to consider where's the makeout places. We missed it. It's a problem with magnet schools. The kids come from all over the city. That means we're the one place that they actually can see each other. This is Lonnie Mercado, and what Lonnie is doing is he is cutting sheet metal. And what he was building is one of the things we actually demoed to Bill Gates. What he is building is a flow process biodiesel generator. Biodiesel, and again, I already copied the fact that I'm an English teacher, so if this sounds like a really too simple explanation, blame me, not the kids. Biodiesel is generally made in a batch process. You put all the ingredients in, you stick it in the oven, you let it cook for a little while, you get biodiesel plus oil. It's inefficient, because while it's cooking, nothing else can happen. What you want is a flow process biodiesel generator where you're dumping all the ingredients in and it's constantly flowing out stuff. No one had ever figured out how. Until 30 students and a passionate teacher did. We know of a school in Guatemala and a school in Ecuador that took our plan, built what we did, and are now powering their schools off of the biodiesel from cooking waste and some power trees and things like that. Kids can change the world if we let them. And they will go where we ask them to if we dare them. One of the things we like to say at SLA is that what if school was not preparation for real life? What if school was real life? What if we valued the time they spend with us, not for some long distant future, or for what they can do right now? This was amazing. I think the school has made more sense. I think the school has got to be integrated. I don't know. I dare any one of you to spend, they go to the best high school you know of. Go to a great school. And then try and follow a kid. I did that when the school, before in my planning year, I followed a student around at one of our really good comprehensive festivals in Philadelphia. By the end of the day, not only did I not remember the stuff we talked about first period, I couldn't remember what class I had first period. We asked kids to shift gears and rethink so many times. We can make today make more sense. What you're seeing in this photo is an integrated art and science project that is actually going on, this year's version of it is going on right now. So hopefully when you're there, there'll be an art class going on. And what this is in their biochem class, in their 9th grade biochem class, They're learning about periodic table of elements. Now they take, in the 9th grade, they take that class, the same kids, they take their electives, English and history. English and history go all the way to the 11th grade. English, history, science go all the way to the cohort, all the way to 11th. So what the art teacher did was collaborate with the science teacher. When the art teacher was teaching screen printing, the screen prints they had to make was a graphic representation of an element. And then they had to explain all about why they created, they had to have a reflective piece about why this was a powerful representation artistically of what they had learned about the element. Taught them great, it forced them to rethink about the way they were thinking about science. It saw them a place where the aesthetic value of what they were doing reinforced the learning, and the day made more sense. We can do that everywhere. And again, I think schools need to be metacognitive. The most important thing we do is teach kids how to think. So we need to make that process explicit. We need to create reflective moments in school where kids can think about their thinking. How do I learn best? How many of you ever had that question asked of you in high school? How do you learn best? We say kids, here's the way to learn. And we assume that they all do it the same way. And we never give them that metacognitive moment. And then we wonder why we are in a somewhat anti-intellectual society. And I think schools need to be a place that are authentic. I think assessment needs to be real and transparent. It's not guessing. I mean, we all do this in schools. Unless you went to some amazing, progressive, funky, wonderful school, everyone gamed the system. What does my teacher want to see? And so you design something not about your own passion, your own belief, your own desire, but what you think the teacher, you try and parrot back what the teacher wants. I was very good at that. This would have thrown me for a loop, and I would have been a better student. All this leads us to schools that are understanding-driven and project-based. What do I mean by that? I think project-based learning is one of those overused terms, right? Most teachers have what are recall-based classrooms, and most of our schools are designed this way. I swear to God, this is true. When we were doing the fit-out for SLA, we were down in tables for almost all of our classrooms. We had some classrooms that had desks, but about 75% of them are tables. I swear to God, I had a school district official say to me, Chris, you can't buy this many tables. And I said, why? And they said, how will they take the standardized tests? My answer was, how will they work together with other 177 days a week? Yeah, a lot of arguments that here. This is what I consider, I think, number one, I've yet to meet a teacher, or I've met very few teachers, who say that they don't do project-based. Right? It's one of the most ridiculously overused terms out there, right? I do project-based learning, of course I do project-based learning. I've lived this question. I say, okay, awesome. At the end of the unit, when you really want to, you're kidding. Wow. Okay, I got 5 minutes. Anything really deep dive, I'm very sorry. How do you assess? And the teachers say, I give a test. You're not doing project-based learning. You're doing test-driven learning with projects along the way to keep the kids interested. This is project-based learning, where the work of the kids is the most valuable work of the class. Tests and quizzes have a role in a project-based classroom. They're great districts, they're great check-ins, they're great ways to see if they picked up discrete skills. But when you want to see what they've learned, ask them to transfer it. Ask them to build, ask them to do. And let's build schools that allow for that. Our science classrooms are 2,000 square feet. They're lab and classroom, and you can do anything. We have to ask ourselves, when we do this, what do we gain and what do we lose, right? We gain the ability for kids to do and create and build and all this, and we lose the idea that we can measure every last thing they've learned from us. So we've got to give that up. Right, I'm going to blow through this stuff. I think technology needs to be like oxygen, ubiquitous, necessary, and invisible. It's got to be everywhere. It's got to be part of what we do. And then we've got to stop talking about it so much. Right? Let's just build it so that way it's there on demand. What was the last time that when you pulled out your laptop at home or on the train or wherever, or your iPad, and you thought, now I'm going to do an iPad project? You don't. And yet that's what we do in our schools all the time, because it is not part of what we do. It's the extra thing. And this needs to go away. I took this picture, by the way, it's not up anymore, there's a new principal there, and we took it down, it's wonderful. But I took this picture on the door to the library of the highest testing school in Pennsylvania. And that was what was on their library. That needs to go away. Because Neil Postman said it best. Certain technologies are not additive, they are transformative. He talked about it in terms of the Gutenberg printing press, that when you had the printing press, you didn't have Europe plus books, you had a whole new Europe. And in too many of our schools, what we have are the schools we've always had, plus some computers. Right? Okay, everybody, let's go to the computer. This is what I think technology can allow us to do. Here are some of the tools that can get us there. We've done a lot of these before. It's not like kids haven't researched in schools. It's not like they haven't collaborated. It's not like they haven't built stuff. But what it allows us to do is do all of these things more transparently, more powerfully, and more quickly than ever before. And again, I do believe that we can build transparent schools. So what do we have to do? What is on us? How do we have to change? The first thing I really believe is that we must be humbled by the task in front of us. All of us involved, no matter what the piece of the puzzle is, all of us are trying to teach a nation. What an insanely hard task. We must be humbled by that task, and we must be skeptical of those who are not. We have to keep asking questions. We've got to keep thinking deeply. We've got to keep inquiring. We cannot settle for the answers that we had yesterday. We must keep asking ourselves if these answers still hold true, and if not, how must we change? And we must not settle for easy answers. When something sounds facile, it usually is. We try and teach kids. How many of you are parents? Do you understand your children? Again, mine are 3 and almost 6. And I don't get them, and they're still reasonably easy. This is again, short of brain surgery, this is hard work. We've got to keep talking. We've got to continue the conversation. We've got to dream big in every community. We have this horrible deficit model discussion right now, where what we do is we sit around and say, how are we going to fix schools? And the question that is lacking is, what do we want our schools to be? And you are in a unique point of that conversation. Because you get people when they are dreaming. You get people when they are questioning, when they are wondering. You get them at that moment. Dare them to dream big. Dare them to imagine beyond what they can see. And help them get there. This sounds a little ridiculous, but I'll explain what I mean by speed up to slow down, right? All of these tools are great. They're amazing. We can communicate. We can do it, blah, 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 blah. And then you can also get to the point where, like, please, God, I just not one more Facebook message. Not one more new tool. Not one more everything. So let's use these tools intentionally. Let's use these tools intelligently. And let's always recognize that they can't just be additive. It can't just be one more thing. Because then you sit there at the end of the night, going, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I've done Twitter and Facebook and Wiki, and why do I have nothing to show for it? So let's be intentional about the way that we use these tools. Let's use them wisely and well. We need to empower children. It is their education that's going to be their world. It's not about us again. It's got to be about them. There should be kids in every design shred. There should be kids in every meeting about facility design. There should be kids in every meeting about the fit out and the buy. Because they've got to use that stuff too, and they've got to make it theirs. We've got to remain learners our whole lives. One of the things that drives me crazy in the education language that's out there is everybody talks about how schools must be transformative for kids, and no one talks about how schools should be transformative for teachers too, for all of us. How dare. It is the ultimate measure of hubris to think that we can transform a child without being willing to be transformed ourselves. My life is better. I am a better person because of the interactions with kids who have crossed my path. There is no question. I am better because they are in my life. We have to keep that in mind. We must remain open. We must listen deeply. We must care deeply. We must care openly. And we must be willing to change. Because all of this, again, it is a crazy time. And a lot of people are asking, why do we need schools? What is their purpose? We've got all this stuff. We've got all this information. We have one last role to play in our schools, that we've got to design schools that reflect this. We've got the most important job we ever did. We teach wisdom.